Welcome back to News and Views with me, Salalo Makwidire. And as the dust settles on yesterday's US election results, the world is already bracing for the shifts that could come with Donald Trump's return to the White House. And for Africa, Trump's second term could mean herald major changes in policy dynamics and with potential impacts across trade, security, migration, and global cooperation. While some see opportunities for renewed partnerships, others worry about stricter immigration policies and a retreat from global collaboration, with Africa likely being the effect of his return. And joining us now to unpack what this could mean for Africa is Professor Christopher Isike. He's an expert in African politics and international relations, and he's from the University of Pretoria. Professor, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Salam Media. Always a pleasure having you chat to us.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me. Good morning to you and your listeners.
There you have it. Trump 2.0. That's our new reality right now. And Trump has historically been more inward looking,
Mm.
emphasizing on America first.
Mm.
In what ways could this approach affect Africa's position in global, let's say, multilateral systems? Could we expect reduced engagements from the US on the continent?
Oh yes, you got it spot on. He's very inward looking. So make America great again can also mean American withdrawal in many ways from global engagements. And if at all he engages, it will be largely selective. Another approach of Trump, foreign policy approach, is the transactional nature of his thinking. Probably something he borrowed from his involvement in business. So that is what you are going to get. And for Africa, it means a bag of different things. We know that he was very contemptuous of the continent in terms of how he saw the continent. And my view is that there's going to be a bit of neglect of Africa. And if at all he needs to engage with Africa, it will be transactional based on I give you this, you give me that. And so those are the kind of things we are going to be seeing from President Trump.
Mm. Mm. And I think from a South African's perspective or from a South African's point of view,
Hmm.
AGOA is the first thing that comes to mind. Looking at Trump's trade policies, maybe from his previous stint, do you foresee a continuation of economic support through initiatives like AGOA, or could we see a shift that could, impact South Africa, which ultimately, will impact the larger part of sub-Saharan Africa?
Yes, yeah, AGOA is one of those things that he's going to weaponize, like I said before. Given its transactional nature, he is going to use AGOA to exert influence and leverage to get his way. The US has tended to always use AGOA, to as a tool, a diplomacy tool. Trump is going to actually increase that tool and put pressure. And South Africa is, you could say, is on the direct firing line of this development because, and this is why I've repeated it severally, that President Biden actually had a soft spot. You can even say love for South Africa, because if all that happened between the US and South Africa under President Trump, South Africa, I assure you, would have been punished very severely by the
Mm,
Trump presidency. Biden had a lot to do with the withdrawal of the bill by his very good friend, Senator Chris Coons, last year to review South Africa's relations with the US, given its position on the Israel-Palestine conflict. So you're going to see a lot of that from Trump. It's going to be, look, you either toe my line, our line, America's line, or you are out. So that we are going to have to expect from him, and Goa is going to be highly weaponized if it is not even dropped entirely, because he went during his term. He was already tending towards not renewing AGOA for anybody, because his view is that America should not be giving handouts to anybody, should not be making it easy for anyone to exploit the American economy. It should be about how America leverages its influence to exploit others. And remember, he in his welcome victory speech, he made reference to the fact that we are going to see more jobs from other countries. America is going to be taking other people's jobs and benefits and bringing them home to America. So basically, that's the kind of Trump presidency we're going to see in Trump 2.0, as you called it.
I want us to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to touch a bit on geopolitical competition, because as much as Trump has a somewhat lukewarm, relationship and approach to Africa, you can't deny the fact that the continent is still a very large market, and is still very strategically positioned in the world, and still has a lot to offer. But then you have, on the other hand, China, which is also has growing influence. So I want to touch a bit on that. Is China maybe going to be, the reason why Donald Trump might change his stance on the continent? Because, well, there seems to be this new scramble for Africa between the East and the West, and China is at the heart of it. But we'll touch a bit on that after the short break.
Okay.
Stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
After the recent attacks on Gaza, many families have been displaced, with their homes left destroyed. Through your donations, our teams are on the ground in Gaza, providing support and delivering necessary aid to families affected. The people of Gaza need your help. Give hope. Donate today to Penny Appeal South Africa. www.pennyappeal.org.za 031 1100 573.
We are here on the ground with Penny Appeal organizations in Gaza.
You know, it's a wonder how kids get anything done these days with all the distractions.
Join Hamza on his exclusive South African tour as he shares his personal experiences, never before seen footage, and powerful insights on the ongoing genocide in Gaza.
This house I'm standing on is completely destroyed. This war should stop. These 5 houses was full of civilians. We are here in the middle of a Zahra neighborhood. People gathering here trying to help people. The whole neighborhood is already destroyed.
This is more than just a talk. It's an invitation to witness Gaza through the lens of Hamza Sha'alan. Don't miss this opportunity to meet the photojournalist who brought Gaza's pain and perseverance to the world in its darkest moments.
Hamza Sha'alan, Rafah border, Gaza.
Follow Salam Media on social media pages for more on this tour and be part of the conversation.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Valley's Motor Spares. Motor spares and accessories for all makes and models of motor cars, LDVs, buckies, trucks, and earth-moving equipment. We deliver on time, every time. Please contact us via WhatsApp on 014-592-0925 or call 014-592-0925 or visit 28 Zenderling Street, Rustenburg. Remember the name, Valley's Motor Spares.
Connect and stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
Welcome back. You're still tuned in to Salam Media with myself, Salalo Makwidire. This is your home of humanitarian journalism, and we're still having a really interesting conversation about the recent American elections and how American policies might influence our own continent's political and economic landscape. And we are speaking to Professor Christopher Isike from the University of Pretoria. He's an expert in African politics and international relations, and we're just unpacking Donald Trump 2.0, his second stint in the White House, and what that could ultimately and potentially mean for you and I on the continent of Africa. Prof, thank you so much for staying with us. Before we went on that short break, I wanted to touch a bit on China's growing influence on the continent. Is it likely that the U.S. Might increase strategic alliances with African countries to counter this influence? And how could this influence the balance of power on the continent between the East and the West? Is it a priority right now for the United States of America to try and curb Chinese influence on the continent? We see, just how much, the Chinese have invested on the continent. Different parts of Africa, they're building infrastructures. They just built Zimbabwe. They are parliament state of the art. There's rail and roads and all kinds of trading deals between China and the continent. Is this a concern for America, and will they in any way try to mitigate it?
Well, China is an issue. Ordinarily, it has been a primary driver of American interest in an engagement with Africa. You recall that after the Cold War, America also kind of withdrew from the continent, and the space that it left was fully exploited by China. Following the Trump presidency that kind of withdrew from the continent or exacerbated that American withdrawal, you saw Biden trying to have a comeback, engage with Africa, but in ways that will give America a share of the largesse in Africa. So there's a bit of competition among different powers in the continent, not just as a way of checkmating themselves, but also exploiting the resources that Africa has. Africa has been touted as the continent of the future in terms of its human and material resources. And every one of these countries that engage in the continent, and like I've always said, are doing so for their own interest, not necessarily because of love or concern for the continent. So that's the starting point. It therefore means that China will be an issue. And we saw a bit of that in how Trump tended to engage with the continent. But the issue here is that if Trump allows his foreign policy experts and the establishment, to give him, advise him, and give him direction, then his engagement with Africa will also be determined by the need to contain China and its rise in the continent, right? But Trump truly doesn't listen to anyone. He does what he wants, and he acts based on how he feels. And what he feels about Africa right now is not respect, it's not regard for the continent. So he may allow China to have a free reign for all he cares, so long as he doesn't see what benefits Africa presents to the United States. And this is ill-advised because there's this thinking that America's economy, American security does not need Africa. This is incorrect. America's security is highly tied to security in Africa. If America is prosecuting a global war on terrorism, and Africa is a home for terrorism already, then it means that America cannot feel safe because it's focusing on safety of its citizens in America alone. It has to feel safe in the world, especially given its self-appointed role as world leader and policeman of the world. So China would be an issue, but it depends on how Trump sees the continent and how much he would want to engage with the continent and even accept any kind of disrespect from the continent towards America, based on what he thinks should be in the best interest of America in checkmating China.
And I wanted to touch a bit on exactly that. I think a very, very important security and anti-terrorism efforts. I think, you mentioned that the previous administration, or just America generally, has been a key partner in counter-terrorism efforts in regions like West and East Africa. Just looking at it and where their priorities are right now, this is the USA. We know what's happening in the Middle East. We know what's happening, with Russia and Ukraine. Do you think that aspect, counterterrorism efforts on the continent, will remain, a priority? Will they maintain, a top level of engagement, or could we see a reduction in U.S. military presence on the continent? Because Americans themselves, even, were really complaining about the amount of money that's being spent on Israel, for instance, and how much, of billions they're getting on this genocide that they're perpetuating against the people of Palestine. So do you think that aspect is one that will stay as a priority when there's so much else happening around them that seems to be more of a concern?
Well, ordinarily, there should be a concern about, ensuring that America puts money in fighting terrorism everywhere in the world. And Trump himself believes in decimating terrorist organizations, at least the ones he doesn't like, if you want to put it that way. So to that extent, you would probably see a continuation of engagement with Africa, supporting the continent to ensure that America's interests are protected. But a militaristic approach to resolving the terrorist problem is not going to work. It has not worked. And that's Trump's tendency to have a quick fix solution. And if that solution means, militarizing and killing people to achieve his objective, he would very well do that. But as I said, that doesn't solve the problem. The human security challenges that leads to terrorism, and that then leads to armed conflict and response with militarization. It's an ongoing circle of cause and effect. So if you really want to address the problem holistically, you have to find a way to deal with the human security challenges. And those human security challenges would require that the United States also bring soft power arsenals to the table, and that would mean extending opportunities for the AGOA for countries, a beneficiation for them, expanding market opportunities for countries in Africa, and supporting business and growth in Africa's economy, which will also come at a cost for America, even though in the long term America will tend to benefit from that. But Trump doesn't think in that holistic manner. He's, like I said before, transactional. He's always looking for what can I get from how much dollar that I'm going to put into resolving this particular or dealing with this particular challenge. And once he's not seeing it, the tendency is for him to neglect the problem or ignore the problem or withdraw from it completely. And this is where we may have challenges with the global war on terrorism and the kind of support that the United States has given to the continent in the last a couple of years under President Biden, for example.
And just in closing, Prof, there's a word that you kept on mentioning after President Donald Trump, and is that word is transactional. You know, he's very, very business orientated. He's like, what can I get from you, and how much do I pay for it? The United States is not running a charity. We are, you know, in difficult times. We want our economy to grow. And according to him, he wants to make America great again. I'm not sure at what point was America great, but you know, he seems to be reminiscent of good old times. But that's a topic for another day. But don't you think this kind of approach is one that the continent needs? It's one that African leaders need to say, to be globally competitive, to be taken serious in the world stage. You can't just sit and wait for handouts. You can't sit and wait for aid. You need to fix your infrastructure. You need to grow your economy. You need to educate your people so that people like Donald Trump, who's the leader of the free world, he's the leader of the most powerful country in the world right now, sees you as an almost equal, and is able to sit with you on the table and negotiate. You know, we know the story about Africa being a whole country, that sentiment. And I think that comes from the narrative that African leaders themselves have built for us and for the continent, where there's so much rampant corruption. People are not doing their jobs. There's impunity in their styles of leadership. Democracy is not respected. And ultimately, the world will see you as you portray yourself. So with Trump's, you know, mindset, don't you think it's something that the continent needs for it to grow itself? And become a global player, and not just sit and wait for bags of rice or whatever to come from whatever part of the world.
Yes, you're right. You know, that is maybe the shot that we in the arm that Africa needs. That this transactional approach, the neglect, would force African leaders to begin to think about having a template for engaging with the United States, so that we are not always reactive and hopeful and prayerful, if you like, or for any particular outcome of the American presidency. We should be at a stage where, you know, irrespective of who comes, we are prepared, and we will not go cap in hand begging. All right. So you are correct that if Africa is able to organize itself in such a way that it would leverage its resources for itself, in the same way that Trump is talking about leveraging American resources for itself, we will not be here. And a good example of this is the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Do you know that if Africa were to implement that to the teeth, as has been agreed, and that we open ourselves up to trade with one another, we will also much benefit that we will not be needing AGOA, for example. We will not be needing handouts from the Chinese, or any promises of handouts that we will get from Russia, that is also even struggling economically. Okay, some of these countries actually need us more than we need them, but somehow they've been able to put this narrative out there, and it comes from our leaders, the poor leadership, poor governance systems that we have, the inability of our leaders to actually think properly, in articulate an African interest, and implement that interest. So that inability has led to haphazardness in how we approach governance, in a perverse manifestation of the state, and the regard that we get from countries that actually even take more from us than we take from them, but have convinced us that we need them more than they need us. So yes, Africa needs to have what I call an Africa-US policy. Since we're talking about the United States, Africa needs to have a US-Africa policy, but we don't have that currently. And this is why our center exists, that we are trying to create knowledge that will foster a knowledge-driven engagement between Africa and the United States. And look, let's not be mistaken. America has the greatest military in the world, currently has the greatest economy in the world. So America is great to that extent, okay? And whether we like it or not, America will be involved in our lives, given their military and economic power. The question remains, what are we doing in order to leverage this relationship that we must have with this world leader. What can we do to ensure that we are not cherry-picked? Because they can cherry-pick us as small countries acting 54 countries with 54 foreign policies. Whereas we can articulate a common African foreign policy and rotate what I call group hegemonic leadership between the different leaders in the different regions of the continent, and trust them to engage and go negotiate with superpowers and come back with benefits that cuts across the entire continent. But we're busy, everybody talking with their small foreign policy and their small economies, going to see what they can get. And what America and these other world powers do is to just divide and rule. And Trump is going to be very good at bilateral relations. He actually prefers one-on-one relationship with different countries so that he can milk as much as he can rather than a blanket approach. But that doesn't help the continent. So we ourselves must organize ourselves politically, we must organize ourselves in terms of governance, and we must begin to deliver for our people so that we don't get called shithole countries.
Definitely. And I think we're going to leave on that note. Prof, thank you so much for chatting to us and unpacking, I think, very, very valuable, points that, the future could look like for Africa under this new Trump administration. Really, really appreciated. And I'm sure we'll be chatting soon. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
There you go, Professor Christopher Isike. And we were unpacking how the U.S. election results could transform Africa's future. And we touched on very, very valuable points, from the economy, to other various points, just, unpacking differently, human rights and democracy promotion, security and anti-terrorism efforts on the continent. And there's still much more that we didn't touch on, migration and these immigration policies, and there's so much. But I think as time goes by, and Trump slowly reveals his colors and what this second administration has for us as a continent, we'll definitely be keeping a close and keen eye. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be heading over to Mozambique, where South Africa has actually closed their border, and this is because of the escalating post-election protests that have left more than 20 people dead and hundreds more injured. We'll be speaking to project coordinator at the Right to Protest project. This is Omhle Nchingila, who'll be weighing in after this short break.
We are here in the middle of a Zahra neighborhood. The whole neighborhood is already destroyed. More than 17 towers are down. Here, as you can see, the firefighters trying their best to help. The people are still under the rubble. A lot of the people.
Join Hamza on his exclusive South African tour as he shares his personal experiences, never before seen footage, and powerful insights on the ongoing genocide in Gaza. This is more than just a talk. It's an invitation to witness Gaza through the lens of Hamza Sha'alan. Don't miss this opportunity to meet the photojournalist who brought Gaza's pain and perseverance to the world in its darkest moments. Follow Salam Media on social media pages